The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. So excited to be here. Equally excited to be joined by my co-host this week. Who's it going to be? We don't know. Yes, we know, because it was already spoiled in the tweets. It's JC. How's it going, JC?
You didn't hit the random guess button tonight. You just got to do that, week. And then next week, it's just going to jumble us up, and then some of us will be disappointed, and some of them will be me.
That's right. All of the guests that all the co-hosts that we have for Break the Business are all in the waiting room right now. Katie, Bree, Elisa, Evan, Zach Sloan. But they don't know which one of them is going to be the co-host that week, and the rest of them are all in the green. They're all in the green room right now, pissed off that it's not their week.
It's true. My number was pulled.
Well, of course it was pulled, because it's been entirely too long since I've had you here. I miss you, man. How have you been?
It's rude every time, but you pull me back in, so I can't be mad at you.
Well, this is what growing up is for me, because we used to live in the same town. Like, we went to school together. We would hang all the time. It was like you and me and Evan and Elisa, and then life happens and people move. And,
to the other side of the country.
They do. The siren song of
to
Portland.
Get as far away from you as possible.
That's that might be. It's like, well, he can make me come on his stupid podcast, but that doesn't mean I have to live in the same town as him anymore.
It's true. Well, it's the only way I could get you to get me on your podcast. Is if I moved as far away as possible. It's the only way we can communicate now. So.
That's right. Well, I'm happy to have you, because you're the guy I talk to when pop culture things happen. And when this whole Mike Richards saga with Jeopardy took place, I was like, I gotta talk to JC about this, because in the span of 2 weeks, he went from I'm the host of Jeopardy to I'm not the host of the Jeopardy to I'm unemployed.
Okay, but let's back up, because he was employed as an executive producer, right? So
right.
He's like the guy in charge. So the biggest thing about this whole thing is that he's like, you know what? I'm in charge. Make myself the host. Totally going to work out for me. Cut to, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Definitely not the host and not the EP anymore.
Really, the mistake was having the parade of famous, likable co-hosts audition for the job, right? Because if they just said, rest in peace, Alex Trebek, here's the new guy, Mike Richards, we would have all been like, all right, he must have been like the host in waiting. They probably guaranteed him the job, 2 years ago, and he's just been waiting his turn. All right, welcome aboard, Mike. But, they did all this and got us all excited about Mayim Bialik and LeVar Burton and everything, and Aaron Rodgers, that we don't want Mike Richards.
That celebrities also go through that thing where you're like, oh, I'm going to interview for this job, but I bet they've got someone already lined up for this job, and they just didn't tell me for it, so we're just acting now. So celebrities go through that too. LeVar, now you get how the rest of us feel when we go out for that interview, and someone already works there is going to get that job.
That's right.
Or the boss gets the job.
Or the job goes to the boss, which is really the situation that we're all much more familiar with. Look, this all just needs... I have a quick resolution to this, because right now Jeopardy, one of the beloved game show institutions of our time, is in flux. They don't know what to do, and I think the simple answer here is they just got to make you the host.
That's what I was thinking from the beginning.
I see our producer Lauren clapping. She's on board with that. I think you'd be great at it, and as many of our viewers and listeners might not know, you have some game show experience.
Extensive game show appearances, as in one appearance several years ago on the syndicated version of a not as beloved game show. Yes. Yes. Extensive.
Oh, yeah, no, it was so great. I remember you and me and Evan and Elisa, actually, we all went to the audition together, And you were the only one who was picked, which I think, probably had to make you feel kind of good. Like, these people think they're smart. I'm clearly the smartest.
Speaks a lot
of
to
our
my
circle of
experience.
friends. Yeah. We have a question asker asking which show. Can you give us the show?
It was revealed. We were going to save that till the next time I was actually invited back onto the podcast months from now. But yes, the show was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Mm-hmm. Spoiler, I am not a millionaire.
Apparently not you. Yes, you didn't want it bad enough.
Didn't want it enough. But yes, I did go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the syndicated version of that show. Yeah.
You know what my most favorite part, and I do want to get like a 60-second version of your experience on that show and what it was like, but I first want to, because this is, my show, so I got to make it about me. I have to relate to you what was my favorite part about you being on that show, which was probably your least favorite part of being on that show, was there was like a 8 to 10 week gap between your appearance on that show and when it actually aired on television. But you had signed a confidentiality agreement where you couldn't tell us how you did on that show. So then all of us, all of your friends, we got to spend 2.5 months trying to pry it out of you, where we'd be sitting at dinner and the check would come. We'd be like, we're splitting this check. Or are we, JC?
Or is he paying for everything? Yeah. Oh, no. In that 7 to 8 weeks, I definitely was a millionaire. I can tell you all now because the NDA is long past. But I will tell you, I was fully living my life as a millionaire because, the only person other than me and, my partner that knew was, Cedric the Entertainer. So...
Can you give us like one good story from that taping?
Oh my gosh. Sitting in the green room was fantastic. I will say the thing that I dislike the most is that my partner told me that I was supposed to be up first that day. Okay? It was the last game of Double Your Money week on the show. So calculating what I made, which was not $1 million, I would have had double that. So I did walk away with some money, but I was kind of peeing. And I bet the questions were totally all questions that I knew.
Yeah.
But apparently they pushed me back and they wanted me on the regular show because, I was so good. So I needed to be with the harder questions. That totally got me kicked off without winning $1 million.
I remember on the show, God, and we're going to get to entertainment news in just a second here,
sure.
But I do have to share this because I remember this. I remember on the show, I'm guessing before the show starts, they had you do some kind of questionnaire because they're kind of digging for interesting facts for you to bring up.
Right.
And for some reason, in the course of your questionnaire, you led Cedric the Entertainer to believe that your whole job was like singing songs at funerals. Because when you came on the show, like that's what all the questions, like the opening get to know you questions was Cedric the Entertainer, just harping on you being the funeral singing guy. Now, you were a professional singer. You sing at all sorts of places, funerals just being one of them. But like you became like the funeral singing guy on the show.
I mean, yeah, at some point in the Mad Lib of questions that they give you, so it's all this like fill in your personality sort of thing. And it's like, what have you done the most? I don't know. Sing at funerals was probably the thing that I thought was the most interesting part of me at the time. So yeah, it just becomes, at this point we've seen so much reality television that's not a weird thing. And this happened like 7 years ago at this point. But like fill in the blank personalities are something that we see all the time. Have you watched any reality show on Netflix? You'll see that like basically anyone on television is a fill in the blank reality personality. So that's what game shows kind of are. You have like 10 minutes to spend with this person and feel like connected to them enough to be engaged in them winning money. So I don't know.
Well, I was engaged with you winning money. That was like the most, I was going to say like that was like the most exciting like 30 minutes I've ever had watching television, but it was kind of more like 6 or 7 minutes if I remember correctly.
Again, I did not win $1 million, so I didn't get that second episode.
Damn, they didn't hold you over for another week. All right. Yeah. Our guest coming up after the break, excited to talk to her, entertainment attorney Mitra Ahouraian. She's really cool, JC. We talked to her before the break starts. I've seen like YouTube videos with her. I've read a bunch of articles where she's kind of featured in Forbes a lot. Forbes does this thing where it's like, we asked 14 really cool, interesting people this question about business, and she's always one of the 14 because she's cool and interesting. And I have this really weird jealousy about cool entertainment lawyers because I'm a lawyer, and I feel like my journey to becoming a lawyer was forged with me having to deal with a lot of uncool stuff, right? I had to spend a lot of time in the library. I had to accept getting picked last for all the sports. I understood that the path to being a lawyer required like that level of self-sacrifice. Like, I don't get to be cool. I have to be a lawyer. And then somebody like Mitra Ahouraian comes around who is undeniably cool. Like, you see her website, you see the video she's in, just cool in every sense of the word. And she's like a really awesome entertainment lawyer to the stars. So I'm going to be wildly jealous for the whole interview, but we got a lot of great stuff to talk to her about because she is a true advocate for empowering creators, just the kind of person we want to have on the program.
So you're saying you're not in the group text?
I don't think I'd be invited to her group text now. Okay. But since she's here, I do want to celebrate the occasion by talking a little bit of entertainment law news this week.
Why did you touch me?
You killed innocent people.
The means to an end.
You started a massacre.
I caused the revolution.
You betrayed the law.
Thank you, Mr. Asante. How familiar are you, JC, with this saga that's going on right now with Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo and Misery Business by Paramore and just like that whole rigmarole?
I am kind of up to date, unfortunately, on all of the rigmarole that is with these two songs.
Yeah.
And all of the attention they are bringing to interpolation.
Oh, yeah, look at that nice little music legal term there. A little bit of interpolation happening just to catch everybody up. And that being said, there's a lot of folks in pop culture who've been following this for a while because ever since Good For You came out, there's a whole bunch of people kind of in our millennial generation who are like, that kind of sounds like Misery Business by Paramore. And so what's happened is recently it was revealed is announced by publications like Billboard that songwriting credits on the Olivia Rodrigo song Good For You have been updated to now include Paramore band member Hayley Williams and former Paramore member Josh Farrow, who were writers on Misery Business. And that move was sort of prompted by alleged similarities between the two songs. And you're seeing this a lot now with these copyright issues. Like this happened with Sam Smith and Tom Petty recently, where Tom Petty was added as a co-writer to Stay With Me by Sam Smith because there were some accusations that it sounded too similar to the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers song Won't Back Down. So this is kind of the latest in a trend that's been happening ever since a few years ago when a jury laid down a massive verdict against Robin Thicke and all those folks who made the song Blurred Lines because of alleged similarities to Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye. And so this is kind of a recent trend. Like you didn't really start to see this kind of thing happening over and over again in the music industry until Robin Thicke happened, when a jury laid down a massive 7-figure verdict and the entire songwriting industry collectively crapped its pants because realizing, oh God, as I'm writing this song, could another song be in my subconscious and find its way onto the page here? And now I have to pay up, to the tune of a big lawsuit. Katy Perry got embroiled in this recently, where her song "Dark Horse" was considered, was alleged to be similar to a Christian rock gospel song called "Joyful Noise." A copyright jury agreed. A judge overturned that verdict. But this is happening a lot. Ed Sheeran's another one with similarities between his song "Thinking Out Loud" and again a Marvin Gaye song, which "Let's Get It On." By the way, which just shows Marvin Gaye is just kind of the godfather of every piece of pop music that exists now, and it's his world. We're just living in it.
It's the new Simpsons did it. Marvin Gaye did it.
Well, I can tell you as an entertainment lawyer who works with a lot of songwriters, I hear from them about their concern about this, right? I remember I was at the NAMM convention a few months after the Blurred Lines verdict came down, and there were a whole bunch of songwriters freaking out. Like, could this happen to me? is this song that I just wrote, is it too similar to something else? Did I have a song in the back of my head that found its way onto the page? And so no matter what level of songwriter you are, this is a concern that you have. And I think the law has lost its way here. I mean, I'm interested to hear what Mitra Ahouraian thinks in the next segment about this, but my feeling is that a lot of the copyright judges out there are interpreting the law copyright law regarding similar songs incorrectly, or at least not favorable enough to new songwriters, and leaving a lot of cases that shouldn't be left to a jury to a copyright jury. And the problem is copyright juries are dangerous. That you don't want to leave them to make these decisions, because I'm convinced, I tell people this all the time, I could lock a copyright jury in a room and play Slayer and Minnie Riperton, and if I leave them in there for long enough, they're going to think they sound the same.
Or you get these experts that come in, and I mean, we're kind of trained to link these things together.
Right.
It's like, what are the parts that make it up? My question for you, especially as a lawyer and you sort of getting into this space now, is how sleazy is it? I feel like this is almost the next frontier, if you'd like to say, of like almost like an ambulance chasing sort of thing. Like, you could just go down a path of saying that every song sounds like my client's song, and sort of squeeze money out of people. And again, I'm just, as sort of the musician side of this, I'm kind of freaking out that these things can sound really close to each other, but not necessarily. We only have so many notes, only have so many chord progressions that sound right for a particular style. So where can this all go?
All excellent points. And I mean,
Answer them
I
all
share
now.
your concern. I feel like the law has gotten to a place where all a enterprising plaintiff's lawyer needs is a musicologist in a dream. Like, you just need somebody on the faculty of some music school to like pull up some sheet music and, make a decent enough argument for similarity. And then after that, you just lock a copyright jury in a room and play the songs long enough, and they're going to find similarity. But the reason why copyright juries are unreliable here, and this isn't just me hating on juries, it's that what's happening here is that a lot of juries, in my view, and a lot of judges too, and just a lot of people, are finding similarities between two songs that are not the sort of similarities that copyright law should normally be looking at when determining something is substantially similar. So what you see happen a lot, so when we're talking about Misery Business versus Good for You, what they're alleging is a similarity between the original composition of Misery Business and the original composition of Good for You, not the sound recordings. The sound recordings are a different copyright, and under copyright law, you can only generally infringe on a sound recording if you're using the identical sound recording. So when you're doing one of these inquiries about whether two songs are substantially similar, you have to strip out all of the things that are in the sound recording, the production, the backbeats, the loops, the things that are not protectable as part of the original composition, and strip it all down to what's essentially the lyrics and the melodic content. And if those are similar, then you have actionable infringement. But a lot of judges, a lot of juries, a lot of people, can't necessarily do that. And so what happens with Misery Business is, and I invite our listeners and our viewers to do this, go and listen to the two songs and ask yourself, what's really similar about them? And your thought's going to be the backbeat, because they do have similar backbeats, which is generally not protectable. The chords are identical, right? It's 1-4-5-6 or 1-4-6-5 or something like that.
1-4-6-5, I think.
Yeah. 1-4-6-5. So in the chorus, the chord progressions are identical, but chord progressions are not copyright infringement, because if there's only a billion songs that use the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and the 6 chord,
Like
right?
all of pop music is has a writing credit on this song now.
That is the foundation of pop music, are those 4 chords. So generally, you're not going to get to own those. Let's see. We got a listener question here. I thought you couldn't copyright music to some extent, like lyrics can, but putting chords in a certain order, you couldn't. Generally, that's true for the most part, right? What you're protecting when you're getting a copyright in a musical composition is the lyrics and the melody. And sometimes if you're if your chords imply a melody, maybe you can get that sort of thing. But generally, everything above and beyond that is usually not protectable in the musical composition copyright. That being said, blurred lines is kind of that blurred lines case has made all this doctrine really up in the air and confusing. But
Totally.
that's the general rule, at least the way I was taught it when I was a lad in school. But so when you take out the chords and when you take out the backbeat, when you take out the fact that they're both pop songs sung by angsty, teenage 20-year-old women, and strip out all the similarities, you get lyrics that are completely different and a melody that, while it has some similar notes and lands on some of the similar beats and kind of gives you the same vibe, they're not identical melodies. Like, if you were to sing Good For You to the tune of Misery Business, it's not going to sound right. Like, if you were at karaoke and you sang Good For You to the tune of Misery Business, you get booed off the stage. So they're not the same, but we're taking a lot of things that are usually not protectable. We're seeing similarity there. And when you put this all in the context of blurred lines that everybody's afraid of being the next Robin Thicke, all these artists are erring on the side of caution. So Olivia Rodrigo is giving two members of Paramore songwriting credit that could potentially be worth millions of dollars, or something in the high six or low seven figures perhaps. That's a pretty big concession to make. And as a lawyer, I'm concerned about this route that we're on. I think it's a scary track, and it's gotten to the point where I would advise once you as a songwriter have reached a certain threshold, when you've gotten to a certain level of fame, you're putting stuff out there, it's getting recorded by stuff. One of the first things I'd recommend to an artist is look very seriously into what's called an E&O policy, which stands for errors and omissions. It's an insurance policy. And basically, you're getting insurance coverage for if something like this were to happen, because all of these artists, none of them, I assume the best of intentions in most artists. They're not trying to steal other people's work, but these things get stuck in the back of your head, and copyright's what's known as a strict liability crime. Or not a crime, but a strict liability offense, which means even if you didn't mean to do it, even if you didn't intend to do it, even if it was completely just by accident, you're still liable for infringement. And so with that kind of risk and the way that the doctrine is shaping now post blurred lines, I recommend that artists get insurance coverage. And, I did want to mention this other point, because the reason why I got this story, JC, was Elisa brought this to me. She's like, you got to talk about this. I was like, whatever Elisa says goes, of course. And she sent me the video of this guy, Adam Neely, who's a music journalist. Yeah. She's a big fan of his, apparently. I watched his video on the subject, and then I immediately fell into a rabbit hole and watched a bunch of his videos, because, God, he's smart. But one of the things,
if you didn't bring him up, I would have totally recommended watching Adam Neely's video. If you have any interest in this, please watch this video.
One of the things that Adam Neely said in the video that was really interesting, and this is going to definitely appeal to you as a singer, as a music degree holder. You know this stuff better than I do. But one of the things he said is that when you have a certain common chord progression, 1, 4, 6, 5 in this case, there is a limited universe of melodies that are implied by that chord progression, right? You can't just, like, certain melodies are going to sound better even in the same key. Certain melodies are going to sound better if you use that chord progression. So if we've already taken the assumption that, like, you can't own a chord progression, what would then logically follow is you also can't own all of the melodies that are implied well by a particular chord progression, because, again, there's a limited universe. And there's a copyright doctrine that fits into this called Sense-a-faire. What Sense-a-faire tells us...
You'll have to break that down for me.
I know. I'm getting really technical here, but it's pretty important. So Sense-a-faire says that if there are certain ideas, if there's a limited universe of ideas that you're trying to use to tell a story, you can't prevent other people from using those ideas. For example, if I wanted to make a movie about World War II, there are certain things that are going to be in every movie about World War II. You're going to have, like, Nazis marching. You're going to have, bombs blowing up. You're going to have airplanes flying overhead and dogfights, right? I can't prevent other people from having those same kind of scenes in their World War II movies, because that would effectively give me a monopoly over World War II movies. So when you think about these two songs, do they kind of have similar melodic elements? Yes. When you hear the two songs together, you get kind of a lot of the similar notes. But how much of that is because there is a limited universe of melodies implied by a certain chord progression? And so it's the same idea of, I can't prevent other people from using airplanes in a World War II movie. I can't prevent other people from using the limited universe of melodic elements implied by a 1-4-6-5 chord progression. And that's the way I think judges need to be interpreting this. But until they do, get an E&O insurance policy, people.
Yeah, until the technology improves, I guess,
Yeah.
as far as
Well,
human history goes.
here's the other element of this, JC, that I think is also coming into play, although we millennials don't want to admit it. I think, because a lot of these complaints, right, where people are like, this sounds like Misery Business, it's coming from people in our generation, right? The ones where Misery Business means a lot to us because it was a hit when we came of age. The younger people don't know Misery Business, because here's something that's going to scare you, dude. Misery Business is, 14 years old at this point? I believe I have this right.
Probably somewhere around there, yeah.
7. Yeah, it's 14 years old. So here's something that I'm gonna. So like all I think this is it's millennials just wanting to be relevant. We want to think that Olivia Rodrigo cares about our music so damn much that like we just want Paramore to have its place in the sun again. I'm gonna tell you something, JC. I had to look this up.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you something it's going to make you sad. I want you to emotionally prepare yourself, okay, for how old this song is, okay? Ready? Are you prepared? I want all of the listeners and viewers to be prepared. If you are over the age of 33 and watching or listening to this show, I want you to mentally prepare for what I'm about to tell you because it's going to make you mad. The amount of time that has passed between the release of Misery Business and the release of Good For You is the same amount of time that has passed between the release of Misery Business and the release of Rump Shaker by Rex and Effect. And Hip Hop Hooray by Naughty by Nature. And 500 Miles by the Proclaimers.
I can't even fathom how much time that is. It's like almost like a classic. So if we take us back to the Misery Business time, we would say, oh yeah, that's a classic. Like, those were classics back then. So now Misery Business is now our classic. I get where you're going with this. Us millennials like to complain. We will continue to complain. It's kind of what we do.
Yeah. It's our world. Like we are losing control over relevancy, right? There's a new cooler generation. Like the Olivia Rodrigos are roaming the earth, and it's their world now, and we just want to feel a part of it. So we're gonna go yell at Olivia Rodrigo because she interpolated a melody slightly.
We've got to take the girl from High School Musical, the series, down a peg. Okay, just take her right down a peg. All right.
Rump Shaker. That's what.
Yes.
Wrap your head around.
Thank you. That was our Rump Shaker moment for the episode.
That's right. I want to give Rump Shaker its place in the sun again. All right. The moral of the story is if you're making any kind of traction as a songwriter, for God's sake, get some E&O insurance, because it is a crazy world out there. Post Blurred Lines. All right. Mitra Ahouraian's coming up next. Do not go anywhere. Keep checking out Break the Business. Ryan Kairalla here. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you're getting a lot out of it. I do what I do because I care about creators like you. A lot. I've dedicated my career to helping creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations move forward. I do it by hosting this program, and I'm also proud to do it in my legal practice. If you're a creative professional looking for solutions-oriented legal services to help you further your goals, I'd love to help. My firm RKPA does contracts, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Visit rkpalaw.com to learn more. That's rkpalaw.com. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. You heard the man, let's get back to the show. Our guest this week is the founder and principal attorney of Ahouraian Law, an LA-based entertainment firm that specializes in handling a wide range of legal issues for entertainment professionals and organizations. She has represented some of the most prominent actors, producers, and directors in Hollywood, and you can find out more about her work by visiting www.mitra-law.com. Happy to welcome Mitra Ahouraian on To Break the Business. Hello, counselor. How are you? Oh, wait, you are muted. She's still muted. Can we unmute her?
Unmuted.
There we go.
There we go. Don't worry, that only happens like every week on this show.
Every week. I don't know. I thought I would somebody would be doing it for me. I'm spoiled like that. Totally kidding. I've been listening to first of all, thank you so much. I heard the kind words about me. That was so sweet. But I've been listening to the conversation already, and it's been so fantastic. So I'm excited to jump in.
I like that. Let's bring you into it. I do want to hear more about how you got started in law and everything, because I always find the origin stories of entertainment lawyers to be endlessly fascinating. But before that, let's talk a little more, Olivia Rodrigo. What do you think of this case? What do you think of the discussion so far?
Well, before I get into the case, I just got to say I'm a huge fan of hers. I think her music is phenomenal, and she's so great.
Gosh.
She's so good. And after this situation, I actually kind of love her even more. You mentioned the Blurred Lines lawsuit. That was a $77.3 million judgment that I think they ended up paying $5. Like you said, juries are unpredictable, but it's this balance between copyright law and creativity, right? And so the idea is that copyright law should protect artists, but also it should not create this chilling effect to the point that it stifles creativity. And I think that after, Robin Thicke and Marvin Gaye and Pharrell, I think there definitely has been a chilling effect. I think there's been this nervousness, and it was a fear coming out of that I actually was involved in a lot of commentary around that case. And there was absolutely a fear around it having a chilling effect on artists. Like, every time somebody is inspired in a studio, are they now thinking, oh, wait, did I inadvertently take that from here? And like you said, there's only so many chords. There's only 12 notes, there's only so many ways that you can arrange. And it's natural to be inspired. And so what I love, if you think about, she's already expressed that, like, Taylor Swift, who she also credited on Deja Vu, is like one of her songwriting idols. She's expressed that she's been inspired by these, other songwriters and artists. So the smarter thing, she's been very smart here to really acknowledge this influence that they've had on her. I mean, if she's going to end up in a bad lawsuit and pay $7 million anyway, why not look like the person that really is honoring artists and cutting them in? So I actually think it's brilliant, and it's also really commendable, in my opinion. And that way, we also get to avoid kind of having all of these artists end up in court.
Yeah. It's nice that for the most part, like, while it's not a perfect solution, I think this modern innovation of just sort of, we're going to give this person songwriting credit, it is sort of a quick mechanism to resolve these things, right? Like, I mean, you've done plenty of litigation in your time. You know how hard it can be to settle legal disputes, how much infighting and paperwork's involved. The idea that, like, we can just make you a co-writer. And I'm sure there's plenty of paperwork in the background to make all that happen. But the idea that like we have some simplicity to resolve what can be an otherwise pretty contentious issue.
Right. And, if I love an artist like Taylor Swift and I'm kind of an up and coming, but I'm doing really well, putting Taylor Swift's credit and giving her points on my song is only going to do well for me. And maybe next time she will want to write a song with me. So I just think that it really speaks to the spirit of songwriting and creating and, that collaboration that is inherently a part of creating art.
I think I got your plan, JC. You got to write your next song and just say that Taylor Swift was a co-writer, and then she'll become your best friend.
It's true.
Think
also
about how
Olivia
much
Rodrigo.
more popular that song's going to get.
Yeah.
All right. So, great insight, Mitra. I'm glad that we were able to benefit from your expertise and experience on this. And I kind of want to know how you got to this place. I love, as I said before, hearing the entertainment lawyer origin stories. You get some of the entertainment lawyers who have a background in music. Maybe they played in bands or they were a child actor, did some movies, things like that. And then they find that they're more interested in the legal side. And then you get the people like me who wouldn't be allowed anywhere near a recording studio, but are just a appreciator of the arts. JC laughed a little too hard at that. And sort of fell in love with the legal technical side of things and, made a career out of entertainment law. Where are you in all of that?
I'm definitely a big fan of the arts, more, even more now that I'm an entertainment lawyer. But growing up, my family really encouraged us on top of whatever our education and career goals were. We had this encouragement to be very well-rounded. I played piano. I was in a dance company. I was in a children's theater company. I was in pageants. Like, it was just, that was a big part. And my mom was a professionally trained singer. So when we had parties, she was always singing. My brother was playing the piano with her. We had other artists in our home. My brother plays incredible flamenco guitar. So kind of a creative family, but also, my mom's a psychologist and my dad's a surgeon. My dad just now passed away. I had always dreamt of going to medical school, and I did everything I could and worked very hard and went to UCLA pre-med, studied psychobiology. In my last year of school, my dad got very sick, and it was very much survival mode for that entire year, kind of in and out of ERs and hospitals. And for medical school, you have to be willing really to go anywhere in the nation where you match. And you're going away for a while. And so really in that moment, it was just that I'm not going to not go to grad school. I'm graduating, and medical school seems like really far away right now. And I wanted to be close to home. I wanted to be with my family. And it was also very much like I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow when I woke up, kind of thing. Okay. So I went to law school because it was 3 years and I could be local. Like, that's what happened. And in my head, I said, when I graduate, that's fine. Once we know what's going on and everything, and I'll just do that, no harm, no foul kind of thing. And I'll just always come back to medical school if I want at the end of it. And then, of course, the rest is history. My dad passed away 2 months after I got my bar results. And, going back to school was really the last thing on my mind. And I thought that I would do patent law because it made sense. I had a science background. As you know, a lot of people go to law school, don't have their Bachelor of Science, they typically have BAs. And so I thought that would give me a leg up and also allow me to, really incorporate my love for science with this new skill that I have. And so I didn't really know my place. I was trying to find my place. And so I'm at a big firm and I'm on a patent pharmaceutical case, and that's what I'm doing. And I ended up getting put on an entertainment case, a big merger with 2 major entertainment conglomerates, and was just, I'm a lifelong learner. So when I was put on this case, I just kind of was learning about, entertainment law, even though it was corporate law and we were doing, it was a Department of Justice inquiry into pricing practices. It was very different than the entertainment law I do now. But I just started to get really interested, and I just was like, you know what? I'm filling my time. I'm mourning. I started taking a class at UCLA in the entertainment business. Took another class, really liked it. Ended up doing a whole program just in the evening while I was at school. I was filling my time, and I fell in love with film finance, and found a mentor in my professor of mine, who was really the first lawyer that I met that I really resonated with, that I was like, oh, I could see myself doing this, because she kind of did it her way. And before that, I was just in such a corporate setting that wasn't me, frankly. And so to really find my place was such a blessing, but it was like, I had no idea that's what it was going to be. No clue. And if you think about, if I were to ever think about, would I ever be doing anything in the entertainment business, that would have been a hard no. Because, I grew up in LA, everyone's a producer, everyone's an actor, everyone's something. And so that was never my path. That was never my world. I was very much in like academia. And as much as I love the arts, that was never really going to be, the world that I was operating in. And luckily, I'm really good at it, and I absolutely love it. And it's just such a match for my personality. And I managed to use all the skills I picked up along the way, like having the analytical scientific mind and the psychology and all the other things. So, and I get to be around artists, which is like probably the coolest thing ever.
And I could see where a background in psychology will help you with
Yes.
interacting with that particular population.
Absolutely. Oh my God. It is so much. One of my favorite things is really strategy. And that's a big part of it, is
Absolutely.
understanding psychology. So
There's a lot of differences in our stories in the law, Mitra. Like, for one thing, like nobody would ever let me anywhere near a Bachelor of Science degree. So the fact that that's a big part of your background, I tip my hat to you. That's very impressive. You don't get too many scientists in our profession.
it was challenging, but amazing.
One thing where I think we are similar, and I think it drove both of us into this field, is, I was also in a family where the arts, wasn't something that like my parents did professionally, at least like not while I was alive. But it was always something that was part of our life. We were always singing songs growing up and things like that. And my sister works professionally in the arts industry. But I had never thought, like, I'm going to be a professional artist. But I was like, you know what? Growing up around the arts is still a valuable experience. It's self-confidence. It teaches you critical thinking skills. There's a lot to. But I was like, I'm going to take that stuff and treasure it. But I'm going to go to law school and be a corporate lawyer or a law professor, something like that. And it never occurred to me that I could like take this passion from my childhood that I thought was so formative for me, as it was for you, and find a way to turn it into a profession and get to be around the people that I love being around, that you love being around, which are creators. And that has to be like, if it certainly is the case for me, it has to be the most satisfying thing about what you do, knowing that you can help that particular population, that you help creative people put creative things into the world and help protect them from all the dangers that are out there.
Yeah, and I had no idea how much protecting they needed until I was doing it. It's a nightmare out there. I mean, you always hear that. Sorry, my dog is agreeing with me.
What kind of dog? What kind of dog? We have to know.
A little Maltese with a big bark. He's agreeing. He's like, I will protect the artist.
Yeah,
but
that's the
They're
protection.
very protective dogs, to be fair.
here's me talk about artists getting taken advantage of, and he's on it. But really, I had no idea until I really started, working in the industry and looking at the contracts, and it was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, wait, no. So it's just a lot of that. And, one of the things I'm passionate about is making the law accessible. And it sounds like, you have the same passion, is that it's so inaccessible. It is so indigestible. It's so hard to understand. And the information isn't really out there in a way that is, that makes people engage and really want to learn about it. And so it's a really tough thing as an up and coming artist, because you probably don't have a lawyer. You probably don't have the money for a lawyer. And that's when you need it the most.
Yeah.
So programming like this and some of the stuff that I do that's, educational content, I think is so key. It's just a little, they're not going to get everything, and it's never going to take the place of having a lawyer, but arming and empowering people to really take control over their careers and also the things that they need to be aware and look out for. Issue spotting is one of the biggest things that we know how to do. And so, like, if we can teach artists how to issue spot, to see where the issues are, I think that's one of the most empowering things that we can do.
And one of the things that you do in this crusade to make the law more accessible, which is one of many things, because you blog, you go on programs like this, is you're pretty active on Clubhouse. You sort of set up camp there and use that as a vehicle by which to get information out to creators and to build your brand and things like that. Can you talk about your experience on Clubhouse and maybe talk about the potential that this platform might offer for creators to network, to meet people, to get their music out there?
Yeah.
Or whatever art they do?
It's another thing that was just kind of this organic thing that happened. A friend of mine turned me onto the app back in December of last year, because I was thinking about buying Airbnb stock. And P.S., I've never bought stock before in my life, but I had an opportunity to buy pre-IPO stock. And I was trying to learn about it as quickly as I could. And my friend who was staying with me for a couple nights, she was like kind of walking around the house listening to this thing. And she's like, they're talking about the Airbnb IPO. And so she invites me to the app. It was invite only at the time. And so I get on the app and I'm like listening to really smart conversations for like hours. And from all over, finance people who, understood stocks, people who were studying Airbnb, people who were inside Airbnb, people that were hosts. It was this fantastic thing. And so that kind of, and I would hop in and out of rooms, but that was my first day on the app. And then from there, like these Hollywood rooms started popping up. And so I would go in them and somebody on stage would have a legal question and there wouldn't be a lawyer on stage. And so naturally I would raise my hand and say, I can answer that, and speak to it. Or somebody would be giving bad advice that's not a lawyer. And, and of
Plenty
course,
of that on the internet.
Plenty of that. So like somebody, it's understandable. Someone asks a question, someone who's not a lawyer might want to share their experiences with something, but that's not the law. And so, purely educational, it's never, legal advice. Of course, we can't get into those kinds of specifics simply because we don't have the time or, we don't have access to all the facts, but it's really, and it just organically became popping up in rooms, legal questions would come up, and then people came to know me as somebody that was reliable, that could answer questions, accurately. And that turned into a weekly room. A colleague of mine who I hadn't seen in years happened to be kind of doing the same thing on the app. And so we were finding one another in rooms. And then, he took me into a private room while we're in the bigger room talking. And he was like, how you been? I'm like, I've been great. What's going on? And then we ended up doing a weekly room that's become a huge hit on the app. It's very well known. And we had an epic night that was like 17 hours or some crazy thing where Tiffany Haddish came in the room and was hanging out with us for hours talking about her legal issues, and like Bethany Frankel came in, Patty Stanger came in, and this is not us inviting our celebrity clients or anything like that. It was a room that was appealing to people like this. And one of the things we take pride in is that we have very real world conversations. It's not just a bunch of lawyers on stage. There are lawyers who work in all different areas. My co-host, David Weiner, he's a senior business affairs executive at UTA. I have my own firm. There are other people who are in-house. It's a big combination of people who do different things within entertainment law and play different roles. But we also on our stage have producers and writers and actors. We support artists. We have musical guests every week. We're like, go buy their music. Where can we find your stuff? Where can we go to your shows? And it's like such a beautiful break in between all the heady conversation. And we get to support the artists in that way as well. But I think the greatest thing is that it's given us a platform to be of service. And at a time where, I used to teach at the LA Film School. I'm not teaching now. We're not doing, we're doing things like this, but, I used to do in-person kind of panels and all sorts of other things. And it's been an interesting year and has created a very easy platform where I can be in my robe in bed if I want to be and help, and help people understand what it is that I do and try to help people. And so it's been incredible. It's something that I don't think anyone who came on this app kind of early on like I did really could ever have thought it would have turned into this. And so he also has the question of like what the potential it has. I mean, the Hollywood community has gotten pretty tight. It's actually, it's like everyone sees each other in the different rooms over time, and we always welcome new people. And so it's been a lot of people have ended up working together, again, reconnecting with colleagues. And so, it's been really magical in a lot of ways.
I am endlessly fascinated with the potential of this platform. I encourage a lot of artists to check it out. Is it still in beta? Do you still need to get somebody to invite you to bring you in?
Out of beta. I think it's out of beta,
Oh.
and I have so many invites if anyone wants to.
Well, there may be some people who take you up on that.
I got a lot of invites from putting in the hours, but
It is a very cool platform.
Yeah, and Ryan, you should come to our room Thursday night. I'm sure you would have a blast, and there's so much you could share.
You just let me know. I'll be there with bells on, but nobody will know because it's audio only. I want to ask you with the time we have left, Mitra, because I want to make sure that we get as much good tips out of you as we can. Since we were talking earlier about with the Olivia Rodrigo issue about just the dangers of the IP world and that it's just fraught with landmines for creators. Can you talk a little bit more about just generally some of the mistakes that you see indie creators, regardless of medium, making when trying to protect their IP rights? Do you see a lot of the same things happening over and over?
Well, yeah. I mean, the first thing is that when you're creative, one, you may not know much about the business aspects yet. Many creatives learn over time, sometimes through mistakes, but sometimes just having a good team around them. And so that's one thing. But the other thing is that when you're in a creative space, the last thing you want to do is pull out a piece of paper or call a lawyer and have them send over paperwork and then do that. It's like the last thing that anyone would want to do. And it's awkward and it's weird and people take it as like not trusting. Like, oh, you don't trust me? And it's a buzzkill. Like, you're in a studio or you want to make a movie or you guys are writing a script together. And, at some point you look at each other and you're like, wait, who owns this? And then then we got to backtrack. And that's not a fun thing to do. It's a horrible conversation to have midway when there's different expectations. So I always say, the earlier on, at the very least, have a meeting of the minds. Understand what the expectations are on both sides. Ownership, whenever creative people are working together, ownership is really important. Who's going to own that copyright? Who's going to control the copyright? Who gets to say when it's sold or licensed? That's huge. Can you both? Do you have to agree on it? What happens if you don't agree? What happens if like one of you just disappears and and the other doesn't even know where they are? What happens to that property? So these are all things that need to be thought through. What if someone passes away? It's like all the what ifs that need to be talked about and talked through. And if you can't afford to have a lawyer paper it just yet, at least have a conversation with a lawyer about the kinds of conversations you need to be having and what you need to, at the very least, get down. For recording artists, it's super easy when you're writing a song. I mean, the labels give you split sheets. Like literally all you got to do is put your name and your percentage and everyone signs it. And then like it's literally designed for avoiding that conversation in the beginning. And then you can kind of do all the stuff after the fact, but at least you know who has the publishing splits. And with, recording artists, it's a little simpler with, as far as who owns the recordings, because that's typically the record labels. But that's one, just get on the same page. And, mistake is being scared of having those conversations.
That's an important one. And I'm glad you brought up split sheets because I've seen it all the time in songwriting sessions. There's nothing that takes the mood out of the room quicker than the person who brings out the split sheet, which you are correct when you say it's not nearly as scary of a document as you might see similarly in other fields, like writing scripts. In a split sheet, very simple document, but it's still something with a piece of paper, and that scares people. I have found recently that technology has helped make, that awkward moment a little easier, because there are apps like Split Sheets or Song Splits now, where you can do it all on an app. And, do I think that app is, every bit as good and covers everything that an ink and paper agreement does? No. But if you can at least, it's a lot cooler when you're in a session to be like, hey, check out this cool app I have, as opposed to look at this scary piece of paper I have. And if you can at least get everybody to agree on the basics in the heat of the moment, you can get the lawyers to paper it, a little bit later down the road when you're not trying to have fun in a cool songwriting session.
Totally.
But technology has helped with this a little bit, but you're absolutely right. And the sooner you can have that awkward conversation where, who owns what and who can do what with the work, have that conversation early before money starts getting involved.
Yes.
Because once the money shows up, and I'm sure you've seen this before, right? Everybody starts to get a fuzzy memory about who owns what and who co-wrote what. And, it gets a lot harder to get people to sign that thing once the money shows up.
Listen, if Blurred Lines wasn't a hit, you would not have Marvin Gaye's estate coming after them. Okay,
that's a good point.
Same thing for Good For You.
Right.
That's right.
Anything that comes up, if it's popular, it's gonna take some heat.
That's when it matters. It's never that moment where this becomes important. It's always when things either go really well or go wrong that you need to go back to what's in the contract. So, and cleaning up those messes is not fun. It's
Keeps you two employed though. So,
I mean that, yes, but I can tell you, and I'm sure Mitra's on board with this, I much rather prefer to use the medical school metaphor. I'd much rather do the general practitioner work of stopping the problem before it becomes a big problem than doing the surgery later, because we let that legal issue metastasize into something that's a whole lot worse.
Great analogy, Ryan.
What's that?
I said, great analogy. That's perfect. That's exactly it.
It's one that I frequently explain to artists. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting mitra-law.com. That's mitra-law.com. Mitra Ahouraian, everybody. Mitra, thank you so much for joining us this week. So much fun to talk to a fellow attorney.
Yes. Thank you. It's a fantastic time.
Well, good. JC, I'm pretty happy that she had a good time. I always want to make sure that a fellow like that she seems cool, as I said before, and I like cool people to think that they had a good time on Break the Business. So that's fantastic. And man, she knows her stuff. And I do love what she's doing on Clubhouse. And I love that she offered that I could even be in the room just kind of looking at it, because, she's done some cool stuff there. And I'm still kind of treading my feet in the room. You know what? Can we bring Mitra back? This is a very good point. Lauren brought this up. Oh, gosh, Mitra, do you have a quick second?
Sure.
Okay, I totally forgot, and I'm glad Lauren reminded us. Before we let you go, one final question that we ask all of our guests on the program. We got about a minute left, but I have to ask. Do you have any last tips to share with the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Oh, geez. Okay, that's huge. You want me to do that in a minute?
I know. Not fair. I screwed it up. I'm
we
sorry.
got a whole extra bonus hour. Here we go.
Bonus. Really educate yourself. This is the advice I always give. This is the entertainment business. It's the music business. It's the film business. It's this is a business. And you can't, as much as creating is a beautiful thing, it's not enough, right? There's so much talent out there, and it's the people who really understand the business that do well, like any field. So really educate yourself in any way. Read books, ask questions, talk to people, listen to webinars, find them. And that's really my biggest tip for anyone that's in the industry, is really, and come to my Clubhouse room and follow me on Instagram, Mitra ESQ, because I have tip videos there. So just wherever you can get the info, as long as it's a credible source, of course, then that would be my final tip.
Well, that last piece about joining you on Clubhouse, that's a particularly tremendous piece of advice. All right. Thank you for tolerating our silliness, Mitra. I promise we're done with you now. All right. Our thanks, of course, to Mitra Ahouraian. My thanks to you, JC, for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you, my man. Mm-hmm. And thank you all for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.